Okay, checking audio on YouTube. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Delafield City Plan Commission meeting for May 28th, now coming into order at 7 p.m. I'd like to please have you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Okay, Mayor Iker,
Present.
Commissioner Hausman,
Here.
Commissioner Kreinke,
Here.
Commissioner Jashinsky,
Here.
Commissioner Merrick,
Here.
Commissioner Schultz,
Here.
City Planner Amy Barrows,
Here.
Building Inspector Scott Hussinger,
Here.
and excused is Commissioner Cahalan and Commissioner Grimmer.
All right, thank you. Looking for approval for the minutes from April 30th.
Move to approve. I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Or abstentions?
Abstain.
Mike abstains. Okay, minutes are passed. All right, so now I'm looking for citizens' comments on just things on the consent agenda. So that would be for 630 Milwaukee Street, the Glen Cove Road, Crossroads Court, and 3047 Village Square. So if you have any citizens' comments on any of those 4 items, please come up. Yes? There you go. There you go. Name and address,
Now am I
please.
on? Okay. Hi, Susie Thompson, 700 Milwaukee Street. I am so thrilled that we're going to have a kid shop on Milwaukee Street, 634 Milwaukee Street, because I wear kid-size shoes, 4. They make them wide, and kid shirts and kids' jackets. So about time there's some clothes that I can wear. Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, any other citizens' comments for items on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed for the consent agenda items. So consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay, so if you're here, consent agenda is now passed. So if you're here for 630 Milwaukee Street, for the certified survey map in the town, for 11 Crossroads Court, or for 3047 Village Square, you've been approved. You can stick around for the remainder of the meeting if you want, but there's nothing more we're going to. No, you do not. Unless you want to reopen it, which it's already passed. All right, thank you for coming. Okay, now on to public hearings. We've got a couple here. We'll start with the public hearing number 1, which is a special exception for detached garage, 637 First Street, property code DELC 0797027, owner Eric Tanis, and that's the applicant as well. And matter is a special exception to construct a detached garage that does not meet the open space requirements, is located within the front and side yard setbacks, and construct an uncovered stoop within the setbacks. So, I don't know if you want to explain more than that in the meantime. Is the applicant here? Oh, would you please come up, and then you can just give us an overview of why and you know, what the situation is, and yeah, we'll need your name and address, even though I just read it. Right?
Eric Tanis, address is 637 First Street, Delafield.
Okay, if you just give us a brief explanation of what you're doing, and Amy can embellish if you'd like.
I just want to tear down the old garage because it's too close to the road, and then I want to put a new one set back so it's a little bit safer for people to pull out and turn around and pull out, basically, essentially, 'cause that's a really busy street. And also the garage there is pretty much too small to really do anything in. So I kind of want to do like a 24 by 24, so it's at least something that you can park 2 cars in.
So I'll quick give you a summary. Thanks, Mike. So this property, you're probably familiar with it. It's a 4,900 square foot lot at that intersection of Main Street and First Street. The house and detached garage were pretty dilapidated. You can see that the applicant is remodeling the existing house, so that is the same house. It's being re-sided and fixed up, and there is an existing 180 square foot detached garage that's severely non-conforming to the road setback on, that's Main Street. So if you back out of that garage, you're backing into Main Street in order to get in and out. So he's trying to push that garage back. In the process, he is making it much larger, going from 180 square feet to 576 square feet, which is a one-car garage to a two-car garage. But with the ordinance, an applicant can apply for a special exception if the lot itself is non-conforming to lot size and lot width, which this property is. So he will need the special exception from the street setback or corner setback. I mean, you could argue that the street setback is Main or First Street, but the corner setback is the same requirement, so it doesn't really matter. And then the side and rear setback needs to be 10 feet, and he's proposing to be 5.5 feet from the two lot lines to the west and to the south. And then he'll be 18.7 feet from Main Street, and he's required to be 25 feet. And then he also needs an open space special exception, which he wouldn't be able to build anything on this lot without an open space special exception. And he's increasing the footprint on the property by 396 square feet for that. And I can go into this a little bit more in the discussion and action, but that is why he needs the approval from you.
Does anybody up here have questions for the applicant directly?
I do want to add
Oh.
one more thing, because I almost forgot. He added stoops to the site plan. So there's going to be a stoop on the west side of the house and a stoop on the east side of the house. The west side of the house, I believe, will be fine and comply with the code requirements. The stoop on the east side, in order to meet the topographic break, the stoop itself and the staircase extend 9 feet from the house, where you're allowed an extension of 6 feet. So he does need a special exception from that, from the setback to First Street for the stoop and stairs as well.
I have questions, but I can wait
Yeah.
till the second round.
Yeah, that's fine, if you want to wait. All right, is there anybody here who'd like to speak to this public hearing? Okay, yeah, please come up. You can take a seat and I'll invite you back.
Jim Barron, 757 Garrison Court, and I drove by and I saw the signs for the public hearing, so I stopped to ask what was going on, and he explained, I don't know the gentleman well, but I've renovated 7 houses in Delafield, and I like it when you can take an existing home and really keep the character. And I understand there was an email attached to the packet, so there's legitimate concern by a neighbor about this. But I think there's really a public interest in getting this garage back from the street. And I know it's larger, but I think if he renovates the existing garage, it really doesn't do anyone any good. So I think you need to consider this. And regarding the neighbor's email, this whole neighborhood has a lot of problem lots, so maybe there are other exceptions that will come in. But in this case, with its relationship to the public road, a busy public road, I think you need to cooperate and get it moved.
All right, thanks, Jim. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Larson. I live about a block away from the project site on the corner of First.
Address, please. Yeah,
can't hear
please.
me?
Please, your address.
And the address, your address. You can,
Well, the address
Yeah,
is
yeah.
1511 2nd Street.
okay, thank you.
It's kind of interesting because I speak with an opinion in favor of granting the request, primarily from experience. I also have rehabbed a number of homes, not so many in Delafield. I did the one at 629 about 3 years ago, and that worked out real well. And I wanted to buy the project site, actually. I tried buying it before it was given to the state. I dealt with the family. I actually met with Scott a couple times informally about what could be done with it. And I drifted off. My age caught up with me, and I decided to be practical about it. But I'm very encouraged by what's being done. I think it's definitely an improvement. I mean, that place was really an eyesore. I mean, it was about as bad as you can get. Most people said it was a tear down. I didn't believe that. I thought it could be saved. I was hoping to restore it and keep the wraparound porches and the character, but you know, sensibility did conquer me, and so I'm not involved in any way with it, but I want to encourage the Plan Commission. It's kind of ironic because I sat in your seats years ago. When I graduated from college in 1960, my first job was the city planner for the city of Milwaukee, and I made reports to their Plan Commission. Well, then a few years later, I was appointed to a Plan Commission in Shorewood, village of Shorewood, just north of Milwaukee, and I served there for 12 years, 3 years as chairman, and so I understand what you're going through. You will make the decision. You know more information about it than I know. I kidded Eric the other day. I've met him once or twice. I appreciate what he's doing. I said, you know, you've gotten a lot of favor on this project because things are grandfathered in, but grandfather has reached his limits, and the Plan Commission can only now give you what you need to finish the job. So again, I'm encouraged by what's going on. One sidelight is I am disappointed, not that you have anything to do with it, but I really feel kind of bad that we're only getting a car wash in place of Hardee's. It's
Well, let's keep it relevant to this topic, but I take your input.
Well, car washes have not the best longevity, so I don't know. We used to go to Albanese's in Waukesha, and of course, Jilly came in there and built a car wash, and, you know, I guess.
All right, again, relevance. I appreciate, I'd love to have a sideline conversation with you, but let's stick to the topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to this public hearing? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Tom Tegeter with Grand Oak LLC. Lot is 1447 Milwaukee Street. So I got a letter about the meeting today, being one of the neighbors of the person that's doing the renovation. But I guess I would kind of second what Jim Barron was talking about. I thought, you know, it was an eyesore. Probably should have been condemned. The person, I don't know who they are, but they did a great job renovating it. And I'm in support of having him tear down that garage, which is not very pleasant and very close to the road, in favor of him building his garage. That makes a lot of sense, along with the stoop on the rear.
Great.
Sir,
Thank you.
are you the adjacent property to the south? Are you the adjacent property owner?
No, I'm to the north.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this public hearing? Okay, seeing no other comments there, do we have any other questions? Do we have any questions for the applicant, or?
I have several.
Okay, yeah, if you'd like to come back up and get those questions asked.
While he's coming up, everyone, there was one letter in the packet, just as a reminder.
Several questions for you and perhaps some for Amy, just to anchor my understanding of grandfathering. But one, I applaud you for upgrading the property. From a strict zoning perspective, the safety issue is clear, but you could rebuild that garage set back within the, I believe, within the confines of what the zoning is. So the question I have is if we're open as a city, I'll say, to have everyone in this same district come in and approve their nonconformance, I guess my only question is that based on something different than a different zoning area? Or when we use the word grandfathered, I'm not sure I'm following that.
So I'm just trying to actually do a measurement here. It's not, so what he's proposing really doesn't have to do with grandfathering, quite honestly, other than the fact that the lot itself is legal nonconforming to lot size and lot width. So normally, when somebody can't meet the ordinance requirements with their construction, they would need a variance and has to go to the Board of Appeals, and they have to prove a hardship. That's very hard to obtain. We haven't had one approved in years. But what Plan Commission did is they created language for these lots that are non-conforming, and it's hard to meet the provisions with any kind of improvements. And then there were some minimum standards that have to be met in order for someone to qualify for a special exception. And so one, if it's non-conforming to width, and I can go through it now, but like in this case, the lot is not conforming to the width and that it's only 50 feet wide instead of 66 feet wide. So in that case, the Plan Commission can grant approval, but you have to look at whether or not the approval is contrary or inconsistent with the spirit and intent of the code, and that the special exception wouldn't be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or a nuisance to the adjacent properties or surrounding neighborhood. So you're not really looking at a hardship or grandfather, and you're looking to see if his proposal has an impact on that neighborhood, an impact on drainage, the aesthetics, not whether or not he can practically use the property without it, which is the test for a variance. Does that make sense?
It does, but
And then the road setback, like if it's not conforming to road setback, you do have to look to ensure that it's needed to prevent a safety hazard. So that is one issue where the only way to get a road setback variance is if it's necessary because of a hazard, or like for the porch to get in and out of the home safely would be an example of when it would be appropriate.
okay, so what you said makes sense, but can you compare and contrast, my understanding is that there are properties that are not in compliance. I think there's one right on the lake there that they're redoing a garage where they have to rebuild on the same footprint.
Yes.
How is that different than what we're talking about here?
So their proposed, that one's complicated, and I would say not comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
They have a non-conforming structure and a non-conforming use, and they're using, that's been a permit that's been ongoing for quite a while, but they're using non-conforming use and structure provisions combined. And you can't build, like, let's say, in this case, he's just building a new garage in a different location. That other individual can't just rebuild a boathouse with a second floor anywhere on the lot. There's limitations that he has to stay within the same space that he's in now. So it's a different provision. He's also non-conforming to shore, side, the standards and issues are different.
Okay, so let me give a different example, and
Let me
go ahead.
interrupt here. This is on the agenda for us to act on and later on in the meeting. So I was really trying to entertain any questions we'd have right for the applicant as part of the public hearing.
Okay,
So if we're done with that, we can close the public hearing and go on to the agenda item.
Sounds
later on.
good.
Okay. You're free. You'll stick around because we might have questions for you later. Okay, so seeing no other comments for public hearing number one, public hearing number one is now closed. Public hearing number two is for 433 Genesee Street, DELC 0793051. The applicant is Aaron Werner, and this is for a zoning district map amendment. The petitioner is asking to change the property from a CBD2 Central Business District to CBD1 Central Business District. And the applicant did let us know a while back, shortly after we posted this hearing, that they were not going to be able to make this meeting. So we will be continuing this public hearing on to the next Plan Commission meeting at the end of June. But if you're here to speak on public hearing number two, you're free to do that now, or you can wait to see his presentation in June and then speak again then. So I don't know if anyone's here to speak to public hearing number two. Okay, well then I will put this meeting in recess and we'll continue it at our next Plan Commission meeting. Public hearing number three, There's a text amendment for Chapter 52 zoning ordinance and the City of Delafield Plan Commission. We did this to ourselves. Amend the text of Chapter 52 zoning ordinance regarding provisions of B5 Office and Research Commercial District. Just give us,
Sure.
give us a quick summary of this and.
So we talked about this last month. Plan Commission did initiate the application. Essentially, B5 is intended for exclusive high-quality commercial areas for office and similar compatible commercial operations. In looking at the permitted uses that are available, it included automobile parking lots and sales offices and servicing headquarters. That includes the storage of vehicles for sales men or servicemen. And those two uses in particular, we're proposing to take out in order to ensure that you're getting the highest and best use for that land.
Okay, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this public hearing number 3, for the changes to B5? Okay, seeing none, public comments are now closed, and we'll bring this up later in the meeting. So the public hearing number 3 is now closed as well. So item 8, citizens' comments for items other than the consent agenda. So this is anything that's going to be coming up later on in the agenda. If you're here to speak on it and you're not the applicant, please feel free to come up and let us know what your thoughts are. Yes, Susie.
So I can talk about 10C, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm still Susie Thompson, still live at 700 Milwaukee Street, still married to my husband, same insurance. I'm here about 10C. Martin Koenig has a dog training company that we need to get approved tonight because my dog Emma is 12 and a half and she's not going to live much longer, and I would like to take her to classes as soon as he's approved. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anyone else have anything else on the agenda they'd like to talk about? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Charlotte Mertens.
You get to introduce yourself into the microphone, please, yes, and address.
Charlotte Mertens, 741 Milwaukee Street. I am here also to support Martin in getting him approved for dog training.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other comments for anything else on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Peter Keck at 1037 Milwaukee Street, and I came down to speak in favor of the Gordy's marine entity that's hoping to rent on Milwaukee Street. I know the business and I know the owner, and I can vouch for them, and I think it would be very complimentary to both Delafield and all of Lake Country.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Paul Price, 1792 Journeys Drive in Delafield. I'm also alderman from the District 6 and member of the Lake Welfare Committee. I'm here to speak in favor of the impervious surface ordinance that's on your agenda at the very, very end. But I'd just like to give some input from our committee. The goal was to eliminate the lake trend of tearing down nice homes that fit a lot and then replacing them with a giant home, which takes up most of the lot, along with multiple outbuildings, driveways, and patios, leaving little surface to absorb water before it runs into the lake. This had to go back to council, and then council sent it back here to do the proper way of handling these things. But we discussed this at council last week, and the council understands the need, but has concern that it might affect some smaller projects like just adding a small patio or adding some space to the driveway or something. We're only concerned about the very, very large projects, tearing down buildings and having a huge impact on the lake. We're going to have no interest in the smaller ones. I know Scott had some interest, some concern about maybe having some somebody having to do a survey of their property just to put in a 10 by 10 patio. Again, those are things that he could handle on his own that should not even be part of an ordinance like this. We're, again, just very concerned about the large projects, and we're like an issue, could easily add a clause that would eliminate the ordinance from affecting any small projects. This is, again, just big picture things. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Any other citizens wish to comment on things on tonight's agenda? Yes, sir.
Hi, Tom Tegeter again, representing Grand Oak LLC. This property is 1774 Milwaukee Street, right down from where Gordy's is planning to occupy the rental or the boutique marine. I, along with Peter Keck, didn't know he was going to be here. Thanks for supporting, Peter. Would encourage you to give them signage. They're a great organization. I've dealt with them for years. They've been around for a long time, I think since 1956. And I think it's very appropriate to have that boutique marine located on Milwaukee Street. I think it'll be very helpful. Plus, I think it might elevate, hopefully, our values on the home to those of Lake Geneva.
That would be nice. All right. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed for tonight. So we've got unfinished business, we have none. So item 10, we'll start with our new business. Item A, DELC 0797027, 637 First Street, owner and applicant Eric Tanis. Applicant is requesting a special exception to construct a detached garage and a stoop that does not comply with the open space and setback requirements. So we can pick this up where we left off, Scott.
Okay. I'm just trying to get my head around this from the standpoint of whether it's a precedent or not. And if it's a precedent, that's okay if we're comfortable treating everybody else the same way. And my way of getting my head around it is to compare it to the examples I've given so far. So let me give another one. So let's say an R1 or R2, which tend to be small lots. Let's say it's 10,000 square feet, and, 50 feet by whatever, and they tear something down. They won't get, correct me if I'm wrong, they won't get approval unless they are 8 feet side back and 30 feet from, they have to follow those guidelines, correct?
So it depends. So what we do, Scott starts with an applicant, and then it comes to me if he has to go to Plan Commission. But whether it's a addition or a new structure, the first thing that we're going to look at is whether or not it's a non-conforming lot or not, or a lot that's non-conforming in width. If it is, then we go to the special exception section, and we have to go through each category. There's standards that you have to meet for open space, there's standards you have to meet for floor area ratio, and there's standards you have to meet for setbacks and offsets. So for example, this lot is non-conforming to width, they have to at a minimum be at least 5 feet from the lot line.
Okay.
If somebody were to come in the existing home were 4 feet from the lot line and they wanted to add on but be no closer than 4 feet, they would need a variance. Or if they needed to vertically expand and they were closer than that 5 feet, they would need a variance because they're not meeting the minimum criteria for the special exception. And then for open space, it kind of sounds confusing, but a conforming lot in R4 is 7,900 square feet. I think this lot's 4,950 square feet. So what the special exception provision says is that the building on this lot can't exceed what would be allowed for a footprint on a conforming lot, because otherwise you could be giving them more relief than what somebody could have on a conforming lot, and they're not given the same opportunity to get a special exception. So in no case on this property can the footprint of all of the buildings and structures exceed 3,900 square feet. that would be the equivalent
Okay,
of a conforming lot, and they're proposing 1,616 square feet.
okay,
But let's say they were on another lot and they wanted to exceed the 3,900 square feet, that kicks them into a variance.
okay.
So we just have to go through these like qualifier
Makes sense.
pieces in order to determine whether or not they fit within this category, which is a little bit of a lighter standard
Got it.
versus the variance.
Great.
Does that help?
Very helpful, thank you. So then the only other question I have is, so it sounds like this is fine, but the person who wrote that letter suggested that everybody else who bought houses here knew what the rules were and implied that this was, I don't want to use that, wasn't appropriate. From what I'm hearing from you, it is appropriate, and then everybody else who lives in this area could, following the same guidelines you're referencing in terms of square foot and setbacks, as long as they're, when they're, those guidelines, they could come in and ask for approval, and unless there's something really unique and it fit this, we'd probably approve it. Do I
Yeah,
have
so
that
there's,
right?
I mean, there's a couple of things. Whether or not it's appropriate, the Plan Commission does still need to determine that it's fitting and compatible with the neighborhood and that it's not creating, that it's not harmful or causing any issues. So that is one determination you need to make. The letter reference, those structures were constructed prior to this section being created. This section was created since I've been here. So I don't know, Scott, maybe 2022 or 2023-ish?
Correct.
So it's a pretty new standard to allow people to go through this lighter process compared to a variance.
Okay.
So Amy, why do we have the special exception process? It's pretty straightforward. These are property owners that built or developed their properties prior to the city adopting a zoning code. So it was fine until the 60s when we adopted our zoning code, and overnight, a lot of these properties became non-conforming. That's the hardship. So the city, I think, has an obligation to create a process to offer some relief because they're the ones that created the hardship.
Right,
And
so I
this
think-
is the process.
Yeah, so what the Plan Commission's role is the amount of relief he's seeking appropriate for that neighborhood? And if it's not, then that's where you have the discretion to, provide restrictions or, say no if it's really not appropriate. Looking at the aerial photos, it looks like a mixture out there. There are 2-car garages, there are 1-car garages. There are lots that are heavily built, there are lots that are not heavily built. But the other thing the special exception does is instead of it just being a straight approval because it's a non-conforming lot, is you have the ability to put restrictions on it. And so I think there was, in my recommendation, there are a couple of restrictions if you decide to approve it. And one is a grading plan, because you do want to make sure that the significant improvements on a smaller lot do not cause adverse drainage. So it says a grading plan that includes existing and proposed grades on the subject property and existing grades extending at least 20 feet on adjacent properties and into the road, because we are concerned about impacts to the road, shall be submitted to the City of Delafield Engineering Department for review and approval to ensure the proposed improvements do not cause adverse drainage on adjacent properties or the road prior to the issuance of a building permit. And a permit may also be required for any work in the road right-of-way. And then also a special exception restriction drafted by city staff shall be recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds prior to the issuance of a building permit. That's a requirement of the code. If he were to come in again and ask for more relief, I believe the code says that at that point he needs to go and obtain a variance because he's seeking what he needs for that property right now.
Okay, this is very helpful. I have one more question. I'm going to ask Tim if it's okay if I ask the city planner for, her opinion on something.
Yeah, of
Okay, so it sounds to me that the real question here is using our judgment to decide if what he's asking for, you used the words a minute ago, Amy, that if it fits generally within the area, et cetera. I have no idea. It sounds like you have a better idea than I do.
It's interesting because when I drive by it, it looks like the lot, there's hardly enough room for a 2-car garage, but when you look at the survey, it looks like there's more room, so there must be more room than what it appears. So for open space, If you look at that alone, the footprint of the home and the footprint of the garage make up the 1,616 square feet. That's a pretty reasonable footprint when you're thinking of a home and a garage. So I feel like open space is pretty reasonable, even though that lot is fairly small. I guess the only question would be is perhaps to ask the applicant whether or not there's any consideration made to attaching the garage to the house in order to get off of the lot lines a little bit. Again, the road setback is non-conforming, but in a much better situation than the previous garage. So I think those two are a bit of no-brainers. But the garage was further from both of the west and south lot lines, and now it's going to be 5.5 feet from both. So it would be good to know and understand why that location was chosen versus moving it to the east more.
Makes sense. We asked the applicant.
Yeah, would you mind coming up here? Because to piggyback on some of your concerns and some of the concerns expressed in the letter, when we do see these exceptions, and this chart Amy put together is very helpful. It shows, existing situation and proposed situation. So we usually like to clean up as many nonconformances and setback issues as we can when someone's proposing to do anything. And we're obviously, we're 4.5 feet from conforming on 2 proposed changes. Where we're actually going from, like Amy just said, on the side setback at 7.6 feet, and the proposal's moving it 2 feet closer to the lot line. And on the rear setback, I mean, that would have an impact on whoever's back there. I'm not sure if that's their backyard or side yard, as far as how close that would be to their yard. But so it'd be nice to be conforming if we could. So for those dimensions, is there a reason that you're not trying to hit 10 feet on those 2 setbacks?
As far as like the attachment there's a well right there. So for me to attach it to be set back from the well, that's part of the problem. And 2, originally I was told I couldn't change anything with the house, and I was thinking as far as the footprint of the house, I didn't even think that I could actually attach the garage. Now I already did all the siding, the windows, the doors, the whole layout of the interior of the house, and that would block a bunch of light from coming into that side of the house with it not be able to have windows. That was part of the reason why I didn't do that. The other reason, or as far as where the setback of the garage, it'd be the north, that's just a retention pond that's there. So I didn't think that would be an issue. And then the other one is a side to my neighbor on Chris is his name, I don't know his last name, but he is very much in favor of me. It's not encroaching on him, according to what he said. But so I didn't think it was going to be an issue.
When I looked at this, I'm going to help you out here, because I don't know if you thought about this, but I can't help but put on my engineer hat and safety. Because I thought the 2-car garage was a little big too, but then I started thinking about this. If you move it, you don't want to move that driveway any closer to that intersection. You actually want to keep it further away from the intersection. And if that was a 1-car garage, we know most people have 2 cars nowadays. You're going to have one on the driveway and one in, and they're going to be backing into that road. So I think it's appropriate from a safety standpoint to do the 2-car garage and keep it along that outlot with the pond on it.
I'm where you're at, the question I have based on the insights from Amy and Tim is, makes sense to have the garage back from where he has it, but he has 14 feet before he hits the house to be able to move it over and give more reprieve to the property owner on the left. And I get light, but even if you moved it 2 or 3 feet, you might lose a little light, but I wonder if that's a burden that's inappropriate to ask rather than to have the 5 feet versus 7 or 8.
Yeah, I don't know. So like what Dan says, if he looks like he's interested in buying an extra foot to keep from moving the driveway west to keep it away from that point. And I trust his engineering expertise. And something else too to consider is the danger of a cascading effect of this happening all over the place. There's not another house that's on that point that's going to do this, that has this project in front of them. And so the traffic and safety thing is I think that weighs pretty heavily on.
Yeah, I think it's in just the right spot. You're maintaining that 5-foot offsets, but you're giving a long enough driveway to maneuver.
Yeah.
And you're staying far enough away from the intersection, so.
Well, it's not like it's backing into somebody's backyard, it's a retention pond. So it's
Exactly,
not,
it's an outlaw.
why the bigger stoop?
There is none right now.
Okay,
Yeah, so there was one farther down the house. We moved the front door over. That stoop was completely shot. But I wanted to have something wide enough so when somebody stepped on it, they can open the door and, and then it's also because the grade is lower there, so it needed several more steps out, so it tends to protrude towards the road.
code was 6 feet and you're asking for 9, did I have that right?
Is that 5 or 6 feet of stoop and then a stairway?
Yeah,
That
that's
makes up
including
the-
the steps, yeah.
Okay, so the stoop itself is what dimension?
6 by 4, I believe is what I put on there. And then it's, what I have on there is the steps.
Okay.
That's what's going 9 feet.
So Dan, I think I see your point now.
5.5 feet wide, sorry.
Okay.
You have an advantage because you're an engineer, but.
I'm
So what you're
retired,
saying
though.
is if they tilted the garage, then the left-hand corner is closer to the road.
Yeah, it just brings it closer.
Got it. Okay, I get it.
I went out there Tuesday and walked the lot. His neighbor to the south of him, his brand-new house, big house. And he sits that new house sits a little higher than this property. To the west, it's higher yet because it's slope. So I can't even see a house on the west because it's not visible because of the slope. And that's where you would back out of the driveway too, is that road right there has a little bit of a slope to it where that natural slope is. I asked about attached, and as soon as I seen the wellhead, I thought, well, that's not possible. So I think that we've dealt with these lake properties in the past, and this house is probably built 75 years ago, 80 years ago.
Early 1900s is what they said.
Yeah. And I used to drive by it all the time just thinking, oh my, somebody either tear it down or fix it up. So I was really happy to see that it was going to be fixed up. If you look across the street on the triangle, that house pretty much sits on that lot. So this is pretty common in this area. And we struggle with this all the time. At least I do when it comes to lake properties because of the non-conforming. But I think that it's reasonable because him and his neighbor to the south are both going to be working on the grade. So it's nice that him and his neighbor want to work together on that. I think that it'll work out fine. He knows what he has to do. He is in the business. So I feel very comfortable with allowing what he wants because, like Dan said, people have 2 cars. Do you want one sitting out all the time? I don't. I have none of my cars sitting outside. Never have. So I think it's really important to have that garage there. So I'm in favor of it.
Is anyone interested in approaching a motion on this? Amy's got a recommendation of some contingencies in her report.
I'll make a motion. I'll recommend this be approved under the following conditions, that there's a grading plan included. It should include the existing and proposed grades on the subject property and existing grades extending at least 20 feet on adjacent properties and into the road shall be submitted to the City of Delafield Engineering Department for review and approval to ensure the proposed improvements do not cause adverse drainage or adjacent properties or the road prior to issuance of a building permit. A permit may also be required for any work in the road right-of-way. Special exception restriction drafted by the city staff shall be recorded with Waukesha County Register deeds prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Second.
Any further discussion? Comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Or abstentions? Okay, you're moving along.
All right, thank you.
You can talk with Amy about getting what you do with the reports and how to coordinate that with it.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. Item 10B, DELC 0804995 2725 Heritage Drive, owner JHGV 2 LLC, applicant Cave Enterprises LLC, asking for permanent signage approval for Burger King. Why don't you lead us off with a name and address, and we'll let Amy give a little bit of an explanation.
Sure. John Kaiser, Cave Enterprises Operations, address 1624 West 18th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60608.
Thank you.
Okay, so you briefly saw this last month when you approved the site plan and business plan of operation amendments, but they did make some amendments to the signage, and this is their formal proposal. So if you see on the TV screen, you'll see the red shapes, and they did remove signage from the northwest elevation. So you'll see there's no signage on the northwest elevation or the northeast elevation of the building. And then there's going to be 2 signs on the southeast elevation and 1 sign on the southwest elevation of the building. Then they are proposing to replace the existing monument sign or entrance sign to the site. They are going to, I think at last month's meeting you saw an electronic message center. They're going to replace it with a regular reader board sign on the existing pole, and it will be a little bit smaller. It'll be 32 square feet versus the current sign is 41.7 square feet. And they'll continue to have the 4 rows of 8-inch changeable letters, and it would be internally lit. I believe the existing sign is also internally lit, although the lights are probably really old because it's not too bright.
Yeah.
The pylon sign, which is along the northeast property line, is also going to be replaced, and I can actually show you what these look like. So the changeable letter sign is shown on the screen. You can see that. And then the pylon sign will also be on the same pole. And based on the shape of the sign, it will also be a little bit smaller. It'll be 89.24 square feet, whereas the existing Burger King shape is 100 square feet. And then there's a 20 square foot drive-through appendage on below that. That's also not going to be on the new sign. So it will be smaller, and it will also be lit. And then going back to those other wall-mounted signs, just so you can see what they look like. So the southeast elevation is going to have the 2 signs. One of them, the Burger King sign, will be 20.72 square feet, and the Home of the Whopper will be 61 square feet. Both of those signs will be lit. And then the other elevation's going to have that Burger King shape, which is 32.81 square feet. They're significantly, they have significantly less square footage than what is allowed on this site due to the amount of road frontage. So they're allowed 339 square feet of signage, and they're proposing 235.77 square feet. If you do approve the signage, I would add the standard condition that they can't have more than 40-foot candles when measured with a standard light meter held perpendicular to the sign face at a distance of 10 inches from the sign. And they will need a road setback waiver, which does have to be recorded with Register of Deeds. I would draft that for them because the signs are too close to the road right-of-way, I believe, of Heritage. I gotta go to, you can see that the entrance sign is too close to the road right-of-way. Normally, you would get 1 freestanding sign. You'd have to choose the pylon over the entrance signage. Burger King currently has the 2 signs, just like Johnson Bank did. So we considered those grandfathered, and because they were replacing it on the existing poles, they were allowed to keep them both.
Any questions? Would you like to embellish that at all?
I think Amy did a great job of, explaining it.
Right.
But I'm happy to answer any questions.
And we appreciate that. I mean, it does need a facelift, so we appreciate that it's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions?
I thank you for that.
No other questions, I'll move approval.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Please.
I just want to make sure that our building inspector has the tools to take care of the first question, which is measuring foot candles for signs. So we need to get Tom to buy the approved budgeted light meter, so.
If he doesn't, I bet SEH does, so we have
Well,
someone go out there if we
we've
need.
talked about that before, because we're going to be talking about that again within one of the other projects. So it's just something I asked Tom probably a couple months ago. He said it's budgeted, he's going to take care of it, and he hasn't, so, sorry.
All right, so you're pitching for a capital expenditure. That works.
I'm pitching for following the budget that was approved.
Yeah, okay. If it's in the budget, we should buy one.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, go
All
ahead,
right.
Scott, you can make your motion.
And also, move approval of Delco 804995 pursuant to the city planner's points 1 and 2.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? Okay, thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
All right, item 10C, DLC 0803-003, 2410 Milwaukee Street, owner Shooter Development LLC, applicant Martin Koenig, requesting business plan of operation approval to operate an in-person and online dog coaching facility known as My Canine Accomplice. Good evening.
Good evening.
So name and address, please.
Martin Koenig from 751 Milwaukee Street in Delafield.
Hi, Martin. You want to give us a
Yes,
Amy?
I'm going to make this one really quick because you heard Martin's proposal last month's meeting. Really his proposal, well, I should go back. At last month's meeting, he was proposing to operate on a facility downtown. The Plan Commission did deny that request. However, he is reapplying for a new location, which is just west of Smiley Barn in the, I believe it's Blue Building,
It is the
Scuba
blue
Building.
Next to the scuba shop.
The scuba, next to the scuba shop. And based on that zoning district, which is different than the downtown, there are a couple of different dog type uses or animal uses that are permitted uses, including hospitals without outdoor runs of pens and pet shops. So it does seem that this proposal would comply with the zoning district. I believe it's the B3 zoning district for the properties proposing this month. If you have any questions regarding his operation, go ahead and ask them. I'm not going to go into it again. It is an identical request as last month for as a training facility for canines. I guess the one thing I would add is there was some talk about where the dogs would relieve themselves on the other site, and he did include a revised site plan based on this location. So he's showing some areas on the north side, south side, and west side that have green spaces where the dogs could go. And then he would also walk the dogs as part of their training in the neighborhood. And I did share with Martin, there is a private, he's surrounded by condominiums. There is a private street. So if they were to complain or get upset or maybe just avoid them altogether, they have the right to do that because that is a private road, and he's aware of that. So with that, I would recommend approving the business plan of operation as presented. He will be the only employee, and he's open, really every day of the week with some slight modifications in hours of operation. And he is aware you're going to come back for signage, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Good.
Well, for one, I'm glad you found a location within the city.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's a better location, too.
Yeah,
I do too.
Interesting,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a little different business model, but yeah. Or the marketing plan is much different.
yeah. Well, I would make a motion to approve your business plan of operation as presented.
Second.
Any more discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? Okay,
You're approved.
get after it, thank you. Item 10D, DELC 0807978006, 355 Austin Circle, owner Bandit LLC, applicant Robert Bartz, requesting a business plan of operation and site plan appearance for approval to operate a marketing office and storage and to update the exterior of the property. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Robert Bartz, 3125 Western Avenue in Jackson. I'm representing Bandit LLC, Brian Waltersdorf, who actually owns the property.
Okay.
Okay, so this property is on the south side of Hillside in that area that is zone M1 limited industrial. It's on the west side of Austin Circle. This building has been vacant for probably a year-ish, I'm guessing. So it is starting to look a little rundown just from not being used. And the applicant or the, who's speaking on behalf of the property owner is proposing to use the building as office space and storage for high-performance sports cars. The owner does own a marketing operation, Bandit Marketing, and they would like to have this facility be their headquarters, but they also use the cars as marketing tools for their marketing operation. The floor plan is included in the packet. They will have in the center of the space the office, employee lounge, bathroom, conference area, equipment room, and then around the perimeter of the building will include the storage of the cars. And then with the storage of the cars, let's see here. You can see he's got, and it looks like he has printed copies too, included several elevations. So the building will get a nice uplift or upgrade in color, and it'll just be modernized a little bit. He is adding 2 overhead doors to allow the cars to come in and out. Those will be located on the south side, which is facing the other industrial properties, and then one is on the west side. And then there'll be black metal overhangs installed over the entry doors. The one facing Austin Circle and at the south side entrance. So I did come up with 2 of those. And then they are resurfacing the entire parking lot, which is also getting a little, could use the facelift, and refreshing the landscaping. They didn't submit a landscape plan. It's going to be, so that lot, if you're familiar with it, it's mostly all parking lot. The landscaping is limited to the fringe around the building. And then I don't know if there's a little green space between the roads and the parking lot. But he didn't submit a plan. So as a recommendation of approval, I'm recommending that he at least submit a plan for my review, and that the plants be deer and salt tolerant. And if you do want it to come back to Plan Commission, you can ask for that too, of course.
Only question I have is, are there unique security needs from your perspective?
I mean, we'll have security in the building, and we're gonna sprinkler it also, so to protect the assets that are inside.
Okay.
So maybe I'm a little thick on this. So you have high-performance automobiles that you market your own company, or you use for marketing other people's companies?
It's mainly, Brian also owns a wristband company, so the high-performance deals are for marketing for his own company.
Really? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, a motion to approve the Bandit Business Plan of Operation as presented in the planner's packet this evening, with the landscape submittal being approved by the city planner.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Or abstentions? Okay, you've been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 10E, DELC 0802-997-1760A, Milwaukee Street. Owner, Waukesha County Capital LLC, applicant Danny Christ, requesting business plan of operation and permanent signage to operate a boutique-style marine sales business. Please come forward. You could just give us your names and addresses, please.
Yep, I'm the applicant, Danny Christ, 318 3rd Avenue in Fontana, Wisconsin.
And I'm Steele Johnson. Address is 1329 Dodge Street in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Okay. What do we have here, Amy?
Okay, so this is the property with the blue building on the south side of Nagawicca Lake on Milwaukee Street. The second story includes 2 residential units, and then there's 2 businesses on the first floor. The applicant's proposing to replace Adonis Roofing, which is about 1,572 square feet on the east side of the first floor. That operation came in actually not that long ago either. And then on the west side of the building is occupied by Straight Edge Flooring as a flooring installation company, and that operation will remain, and they have some signage on the wall. And then there is, on the same property, there is a single-family detached building, and they have their own garage and driveway, so we don't have to worry about parking for them. They're proposing to limit their marine sales to sales only, and most of their business will be conducted by appointments. And then they do have several other locations where they're able to store their equipment and boats and show people what they have to offer. So this particular space will include a lobby area, lobby and waiting area, 2 offices, a kitchenette, a meeting room, and then there will be some display in a bathroom. If you look in the packet, they were proposing to use a couple of the stalls for parking of boats and trailers. I did talk to the applicant. Parking is really limited out here. So the owner has stated in previous applications that there's 14 spaces on the property. It's tight. If there's 14 spaces, it's pretty tight. Straight edge flooring has 5 spaces designated for their particular use. They only are required to have 4. And then the 2 apartments above each have a stall that's specifically designated for their spaces. By ordinance, they're supposed to have 2 each. I think they're using 1 each. And then the applicant is required to have 7 spaces. So they would have enough parking, and then the single-family home has parking. But it does appear that in order to meet that 14 spaces, they are stacking the vehicles. Historically, we've had very similar operations, and parking has really never been a problem because the traffic that's coming in and out is pretty minimal based on appointment-only traffic. So I'm not too concerned about that. The employees could park first and customers could park behind them. But if they're going to park boats and trailers, they're taking up some of that valuable parking. And then in addition to that, the B1A district, which this is in, really is a commercial/residential transitional district. And it does state that all businesses servicing and processing except for off-street parking or loading be conducted within a completely enclosed building except for occasional outside storage. So I guess there's a question of whether or not that would even be allowed in the B1 district. And then in addition to that, this site in particular has very limited maneuverability for cars to turn around and get in and out of the site. They are proposing to have 2 full-time employees, and they would be open up to 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they're also proposing a 9.3 square foot sign, which you can see on the screen. It would be mounted to the building where the roofing sign was previously. It's going to be oval shaped with wood letters, and that is attached to a painted black metal frame, and the sign will not be illuminated, correct?
Correct.
So with that, I would recommend approving the business plan of operation and permanent signage as presented, except I do recommend that the no boat and or trailer parking for storage or display be permitted on site.
I just have a curiosity question. At least in my mind, boat purchasing, 1 is subject to upselling, and 2, it's kind of an emotional, sometimes an impulse, particularly the upsell. And big part of that is when you're looking at a boat and you see it, and you had this in mind, and you see one that's 10 grand more, but boy, I want that one. If you don't have anything to show the client, do you do it online, or how does that work, the sales process?
So in one of the rooms, we're going to set up a big screen TV. They're able to go online. You can go through your colors, look at options, look at videos. We found it much more effective. We actually get the people out on the waters. We take the boat to them. We go to their lakefront home. We meet them at a launch ramp if they're trailer boaters. Get them on the water to actually feel and touch
Okay.
the product.
All right, interesting, okay.
Which is similar to how we're doing so now. We're operating a service center and sales operation in Ixonia, and that service center will stay in Ixonia, as well as some product. So we do a lot of that consultation in advance remotely, and then even together digitally, right, virtually, to try and narrow down what the needs of that customer are, and then, like Danny said, we take it to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The property does have frontage on the lake. Do you have designs on using that frontage for any boats?
That would be great eventually, but that's not part of this application right now. We're just excited to be able to look out that big window at the water and operate that way.
Any other questions?
I just want to remind Amy, we talked about painting the door. Okay.
I have a note on the staff report. The other thing that they are proposing to do, there's yellow doors. I think there is a picture on here. You're not gonna get a good picture. He did email me a picture. So it's a blue building with yellow doors. He would like to paint all of the yellow doors on the buildings to a blue color. A darker blue color.
Navy.
And leave the rest of the outside that light bluish?
Yeah, light blue, white trim on the doors and windows.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be an improvement, probably.
And all doors on the property, not just the ones
Right.
to our.
Good answer.
Just want to make sure that was clear.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Gordy's Lakefront Marine business plan of operation and permanent signage as presented, and there will be no boats or trailer parking or storage or display permitted on the site.
I want to include the
Outside.
doors,
Oh,
just so it's in the motion, because it's not in my report at all.
okay, and the painting of all the doors on the building.
I'll second.
Any more discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you so much.
It's boat season.
Almost.
Speak for yourself.
Okay.
Scott.
Yeah, it's true.
Item 10F, DELC 0791034, 230 Birch Road. Owner and applicant Kenneth Anderson requesting a site plan and appearance approval to construct a 6-foot-tall fence along their west lot line. Good evening. If you could, just need to press the bar on the bottom and the lights go.
Good evening. I'm Kenneth Anderson, my wife Debbie. We're at 230 Birch Road here in Delafield.
Hello.
Hello.
Amy.
Okay, so this is a 1-acre property just west of St. John's Estates in the subdivision. The property is located on a corner of 2 streets, and they are proposing to install a 6-foot-tall dog-eared treated wood fence along the west border of their property. They're proposing that fence to screen a patio and fire pit that they have from the outdoor uses of the neighboring property. And it would extend, so you can see it's a pink line on the survey if you can see that. It would essentially extend from the front of the home along Birch Road 100 feet into their backyard. And they are proposing that it be located approximately 1 foot from the lot line, and the side facing the neighbor would have a finished look. And it does appear that there's some vegetation on the lot line. When I'm done, I don't know if you could just answer to whether or not you have to remove any of the vegetation in order to make this work. That would be great. So Plan Commission approval is required because the fence is less than 50% open, it's taller than 4 feet in height, and within the required 20-foot side yard setback. So really, all 3 of them trigger it. The Plan Commission, I have in the report several items, standards that the Plan Commission should be considering. And, probably the most applicable one for this property is encouraging cohesive and compatible development that protects the aesthetic quality of the city. So with that, I would just suggest that the Plan Commission consider whether or not the fence can be reduced in height in any way, relocated at all, or redesigned while still protecting the applicants from the noise and activity of the adjacent property. And so with that, I think the Plan Commission should also explain why the fence needs to be 6 feet tall instead of 4 feet tall and 1 foot from the lot line instead of, we'd like to see like at least 3 to 5 feet just so you can maintain both sides of the property. So maybe at least how you plan to maintain then if you're going to keep it 1 foot.
Didn't we have in that same neighborhood, a fence that we approved for a nuance issue?
Yes.
That was for a neighbor?
It's almost identical. Walter Kane's our neighbor, and so I actually took some pictures of his fence. It's almost identical to what we want to do, starting it on the front of our property, going 100 feet back. Something that's unique about our property that you might be able to see from the aerial photography is our driveway is right next to our neighbor's driveway. The whole subdivision doesn't have that. It's a very unique position. So we're actually pretty close to the activity at their house, and so that's one of the reasons for the privacy concern.
Was that other property within the same 1 foot?
His is like 1 to 3 feet. I talked to him. I think he might have a 3 foot back, and we're not
necessarily stuck on the 1 foot. We do have some vegetation, namely some white pines, but the lower branches are dead. So we'd have to cut those anyways and get rid of some buckthorn and run it through there, and then we'll landscape around it. Once it's in, we'll put junipers down there, so.
The other part is our property is much lower than theirs, so, you know, lowering it would be nice if we could have this division. Our neighbor likes to entertain a great deal, and we've invested a lot in our yard and our patio area, and we've lost our sense of privacy and peace and tranquility. He recently also poured a cement basketball court in addition to his pool, where they do a lot of entertaining. So he's kind of created this playground, and the walkway to that is the closest side to where we would like to enjoy being in our yard without feeling like we're on display.
I have some additional pictures that might be helpful in terms of the conversation. That'd be.
Yes, please.
While you're passing those out, have you spoken to your neighbor?
Yeah, he's in favor. He's in favor. As a matter of fact, he wants to partake in, once it's done, doing the landscaping on both sides. So the first part of this package.
You're going to need to speak in the mic, I'm sorry.
The first couple of pages just kind of look at what our current property looks like. So if you look at slide 2, those are the 2 adjacent driveways. And you can tell the slope from his driveway down to ours is about a 3 or 4 foot drop. So that's one of the reasons for the height of the fence. And then on pages 3, these are actually from his yard. That shed that he built right near the property line is more like a pool shed, party shed kind of a thing. And to that side, which is on our property line, that's where the traffic goes back to his backyard. So it's becoming a walkway. So the fence would help kind of block that view. And then if you look at page 4, that's sitting on our back porch. So that's our patio, and that's what we look at. So we have a fire pit, we look at that walkway, and we look at his backyard. And so that's kind of the view that we have. And as Debbie said, they entertain frequently. And then the last couple of slides are the precedents that was set. Walter put that fence up in March. So it's almost identical in construction. It's a solid fence, 6 foot. It goes through vegetation. And if you look at slide 6, it's one of the keys for him is that it helps when he sits out on his patio, including his fire pit. He doesn't have to look at the neighbors having parties in their backyard and their pool. So.
I just want to say with these very recent photos, it looks like we have more privacy than we do because everything is in bloom. So this is, you know, if we had taken them just a few weeks ago, you'd have a different picture.
Do we know what the setback was on the house we previously?
I don't know. Scott, do you? Three?
That's what I remember.
I think I remember
3 feet, because you gotta have room back there. don't you?
Yeah, I think 3 feet will work because
Place
that'll give us
boards.
time, that'll give us enough space to maintain it on the other side. And I think we can get it through to where on the pines, because we have basically 2 rows of pines that we need to go through.
And I recall the other one was where we started it. We began it at the front of the house, coming back just at the patio, just past it. So we restricted the length of that. I
Yeah,
know
he
that
said he
from
wanted to go all the way back to the end of his lot,
and
and so he did it
we
halfway.
tightened it up.
Yeah. So we want to go exactly the same length that he has. He has 100 feet, and that's what we want to do.
Did you ever consider just fencing in around your patio and fire pit?
It wouldn't be very functional because our driveway goes up to our backyard that then goes to our fire pit. So there's not we would lose a big chunk of our yard if we did that. This way we keep our yard.
Well, you wouldn't have to put it all the way around. I have this situation right next door to me because I sit higher than my neighbor. And years ago, what he did is he just put up one fence, not very long, so I couldn't, because he has a 3-season room too.
Yeah.
Just, so it was just past the 3-season room in his fire pit.
Yeah, this is more than just the patio. It's also by the driveways, because a lot of activity, when there's activity there in terms of parties, happen on the driveway. So I want to prevent things like we have balls constantly coming into our yard. I want to have a barrier there as part of our driveway too, so it would actually be about 30 feet of our driveway. That would also be, provide a barrier.
Amy, could you put the picture up again that shows the fence? The
Yep.
length,
Like that?
the length.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know, maybe we have it in front of me, I don't know. I don't think it shows on what I have.
Can you see it? The pink, can you see that?
It is in the packet.
Mike, can you put it there? Can you see the pink line?
Oh, I see it now. I can see it. So I was just trying to get it in the context of the driveway and.
Yeah, so if I go to this map and I zoom in,
Okay,
it's pretty much from the start of their garage, like where I have my cursor,
okay,
back 100 feet.
okay. And the 100 feet goes to approximately where their pool and all that is?
Yeah, it goes just past to where that shed is that they built,
Okay,
which will work well because they're doing a mounding event. Like Debbie said, they put in a concrete slab with a basketball court back there, so they're going to
Okay.
provide some natural landscaping to kind of barrier that.
my main concern is going to 3 feet versus a foot.
I'm going to presume you've thought through, there's no way to use vegetation rather than a fence. It's, don't care for fences, they're abrupt, they're, you know.
It will be done where it won't be just a fence. We intend to have some vegetation, and it will also be between some trees. It's a much quicker way to create some of this privacy. We've kind of been trying to figure out what to do for the last few years as he's ramped up his events. And so we do, we really value how our home and our yard appears and appreciate the beauty. My dad's a landscaper, and he's constantly giving me ideas, and he was the one that said, go with the fence if you can, and then add to it, because it's changed our feeling about our home. When we come home to seeing 10 cars in his driveway, it's upsetting to feel like we can't be in our yard and, just enjoy what we've invested in.
Okay.
And this is going to be solid wood? There's not going to be any 50% opening?
I mean, it's pretty close.
Correct.
You can see there's going to be, I would assume, a little bit of spacing in between the boards, but not much.
I have to be honest, I'm not a fan of fences. I live in the country. I don't want to see a fence. I've seen plenty of fences when I grew up in Milwaukee. The only fences in my neighborhood are small areas for my neighbors' dogs, and they're cyclone fences. I don't like the appearance of them, and I think that I don't want Delafield to become a city of fences. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, now, what I will say is, we did set a precedence, at least with a neighbor of yours, allowing them to put an identical style fence in theirs for a reason of very close to what you're asking us for. To me, I find it hard to say, yeah, it's okay for them, but for your neighbor, and now we say no for you. And so, I, for one, don't see a problem with putting it up for the reasons you're saying. I would be even willing to, are we looking for a motion to approve or deny at this point?
Of course.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve as presented for a length not to exceed 100 feet, to start no further to the front road than the front of the house, and to stop at the point of just past the neighbor's pool patio area.
Can I ask a question?
And for the
go
height,
ahead.
and for the height requested.
And for setback from the line?
And 3 feet
And 3
setback from the
feet.
lot
That's
line.
where I was going, yeah.
Any more discussion? You know, I'll say one thing that's, I'm thinking of is just that, it's,
Do we have a second?
it's, yeah, there was, right. It seems, it's proportionate to the other fence, and landscape it and let the plants grow up around it, you know, like we had the other applicant do. And, you know, it's not encircling the property and, you know, so, and proportionate on a 1 acre lot, 100 feet seems like a long spot, but and like if you go down to some of the, places like in Beacon Hill, that'd be the equivalent of like an 8 feet long screen, right? So you know, sometimes they fit and sometimes they don't. This one seems to. Okay, any more discussion?
Can I just add a comment before you close it out? So you said from the front of the home to the pool, to the back of the pool area, the applicants did talk about that basketball court. Is that even further back than the pool?
It is, it's behind the pool, but our fence won't go that far. It'll go 100 feet from the front of our house. So it'll go just past what that pool shed thing is.
Yeah, so not to exceed the length of the 100 feet.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
That would probably be an easier measure.
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't have a second.
We didn't have a second?
I didn't think we did.
Oh.
We were
We
discussing.
gotta do that again.
Our illustrious mayor was interested
I
in,
jumped on it. So what-
I'll second it.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, vote's the same, you still got it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 10G, 810 Genesee Street, owner Robert and Charlotte Miller, applicant Dane Kummer. Green Door Cafe, applicant is requesting to amend an existing business plan of operation to expand the dining area to the outside space located on the east side of the building. Hello, name and address, please. Doing great.
Dane Kummer, 1830 Nigawicka Road, Heartland. Talking about the Genesee, our Green Door Cafe at 810 Genesee Street.
Okay, so if you know where the Green Door Cafe is, it is just south of the Bark River downtown on Genesee Street. So the applicant has if you've been there, they have very limited opportunity for people to dine in. And they want to continue to operate their restaurant and be able to increase customer traffic. So they are proposing to incorporate an enclosure on the east side of the building where there is already an outdoor space. But they would like to propose this enclosure that is 13 feet by 26 feet, 338 square feet in size, and it would add a seating of about 20 to 24 customers. And it would be a year-round type enclosure, is that correct, with sliding glass doors and?
Extend the season, sure.
What's that?
To extend the season. I mean, I don't know if it'll be the perfect thing in January, February, but, you know, it will be enclosed with sliding glass doors and electric heaters.
so 3-season.
More 3-season than 4, but.
Okay. And then it would be placed on a deck platform. And this type of structure would need to go through Scott for permitting, make sure it's being built appropriately into code and
I agree.
accommodating the public. And then they are updating their business plan of operations as well, proposing to extend their hours until 7 PM with some dinner options and possibly be open 7 days a week eventually. Right now, you're mostly open for brunch, lunch, so they would extend those hours. And then they may pursue a beer, wine, liquor license with the city, which is a separate process. They have 2 full-time employees and 3 to 4 part-time employees. And the one question I have is in the back, I believe the Millers have a survey of the property, but it will be it appears that it will be pretty tight from the enclosure to the east side of the property. So it will consume a significant area of the space. And I didn't know, Scott, if does a structure like this have to meet a setback from the building itself?
No, there is no separation requirement from building to building in the city.
Okay. Oh, okay. So with that, I would recommend approving the business plan of operation and site plan and appearance as presented, providing a building permit is obtained for the structure, decking, any electrical work. And Scott, do you think a survey should be required, or is this a temporary enough structure where it wouldn't be?
Well, I have a question that relates to that. Will this structure in any way restrict fire department access?
No, it shouldn't.
Okay. And when you say temporary, Amy, let me just ask you, I mean, this is year-round.
Pretty permanent, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my concern as a building inspector is the structural integrity in a high wind event with people inside. So when you come to me for a permit, I'm gonna be asking you to document how you're gonna meet those standards. And I think it's pretty permanent because you're gonna have to bolt this or attach it somehow.
Yeah, I
That's
think.
pretty permanent.
So the Millers were kind of working through that as far as, you know, do we go with a concrete pad or a deck? So as we get quotes and, because they're willing to, you know, kind of add the structure for me and to hope that I stay longer and stuff. So we definitely, it's a heavier thing with all the glass. It's, you know, like 10 millimeter tempered glass. I think in the spring, summer, we're just intending on leaving it open. So it's not like, it's actually like a, you know, an open thing back there. But when it rains or snow, then we would close it up and have one sliding door as the entrance.
Is this structure like set up to accommodate wiring, lighting?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's a system out of Norway that has all that integrated into it.
Okay.
LED lighting, the heaters, and a motor for the louvers to open and close.
So Amy, I'm assuming this is CBD 1,
Yeah, so there's no setbacks.
right?
It's just a tight site. I guess I would recommend a survey to ensure it's on their property.
What's the roof? Is that glass?
What's that?
The roof of this?
The roof is metal. They're
Oh, it
like
is
metal louvers.
I mean, you answered my question. I was concerned about snow loads, but if it was Norway, I'm sure
Yeah, I
they-
forget the load weight. I did ask that question. I think it's, I can't tell you off the top. of my
I'm
head,
sure
but
they
it's-
handle
It's
it.
quite a bit.
Sure.
I think it was like a 2-foot, like it, you know. So, but I think we'd intend
Okay.
on, if we knew there was a big snowstorm, you could just open it up and, you know, let it, like, people aren't gonna come there when it's a snowstorm anyway, for most part, so.
How far from the neighboring structure would this be?
The neighboring structure.
Or the
so from
property
building,
line? Or the property line?
Well, it's inside the fence line. Bob and Charlotte, I think, would like to bring it from the building, I don't even know, not 8 feet, 6 feet? 12 feet.
I want to make sure it doesn't restrict emergency exiting from the neighboring building, from a second floor window, or something like that. So I can't determine that from here.
Yeah. 9 feet. So, yeah, as far, I mean, we were gonna have it, I think it's proposed like within 2 feet of the building, but as far as an exit off the roof, you know, I'm not sure how that.
That would be part of the building permit process, right, Scott?
It will be, it needs to be, or I need to get the fire department to weigh in on this before I issue a building permit, just for safety issues for your second floor occupants and any neighboring. I don't think there's an adjoining property concern, just based on the satellite photo. It's likely not a big issue.
Okay.
It's a parking lot to the east, right? I mean, and you said you're building within the fence line that's
Yeah.
there? Okay. There's a gazebo there right now?
Yes.
That's,
So it'd be just west of gazebo.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to see it driving around in the city. I mean, this is, right, this is tucked back behind a lot of things. I mean, I've got a couple comments. One is, it's more attractive than some of these snow globes, things that have popped up that people think. I don't know. They're just doing it, and we'll see if that ever comes up as an issue. But it fits in about equally as well as those two, as far as with architecture and stuff. But since it's this is tucked behind
The building.
in an alley, I mean, really. So that's my consideration in looking at it is like, that doesn't belong downtown. But it's not in the it's really not in the public view. You're gonna be seeing it if you go to the restaurant.
Isn't this the same property that had like a wedding ceremony
I
platform
think
in the
it's,
back?
so there's a couple of buildings, and it might have been the other building, but yeah,
Yeah.
they.
Yes.
It's the same
Kinda-
outdoor space.
yeah.
It's two properties in one.
I
Yeah,
do
and the-
remember that.
And the other comment I wanted to add is, my concern is like everything that Scott's concerned about, and I trust him to scrutinize this appropriately, for, like the weather events, the fire and safety and all that stuff, so.
I'll motion to approve the Green Door Cafe BPO and site plan and appearance as presented, provided a building permit is obtained for the structure, decking, and electrical work.
I'll second.
And a survey be required for this.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, now we've got item H, DELC 0743999-008, 345 Nashotah Road, owner William and Barbara Knopf, applicant Bonnie Knopf, requesting feedback on a concept presentation to operate a farmer's market in addition to their existing trailer and lawnmower sales and service business. Good evening.
Good evening. Bonnie Knopf, 200 Nashotah Road, regarding the 345 Nashotah Road property.
Okay, so I'll do this real quick, and then you can fill in any blanks. So this is a 10-acre property that's adjacent to Hawthorne Farm. It was brought up when that subdivision came in. It's in the southwest corner of the subdivision. There is an existing conditional use for the property for the sale of and service of trailers and lawn and garden equipment. The operation is known as Bill Bauer Farms. They currently operate Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. and on Saturdays from 8 to noon. And Bonnie would like to, let me go to, there's a good labeled map here. So Bonnie would like to use a couple of the buildings for a farmer's market operation. And some of the vendors would be permanent, correct? And then some vendors would come and go on a weekly basis, and they would set up on Wednesdays and then be open Thursdays and Fridays from 10 to 5 and on Saturdays from 10 to 4, and then be closed Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. The idea would be to sell agricultural type goods and related products, could include vegetables, flowers, plants, honey, soaps, bakery, cheese, meat, oils, wreaths, jewelry, and clothing, a variety of different things. So there's several properties on this property. You can see there's there's some trailer storage, and I don't know what the showroom, okay, so there's a showroom and shop, and then a trailer storage, and then other storage buildings. So the buildings that are noted as number 5 and number 6 on this survey, kind of in the back 2 buildings, are the ones that she would like to use as the market. And so if you look at these pictures, this building would be one of the buildings. And then there's a hoop house behind it. Should be proposing to replace the hoop house with a new barn-type structure to accommodate the market. And I don't know, were you proposing to make any upgrades to
Yes,
this
yeah,
building?
the roof line I want to mimic the new proposed building as well.
Okay. And then building 4, let me go back to that site plan.
And that would be, down the road, and that's where the permanent building, or that's where the permanent vendors would be. So the first proposal, or what I'm really looking to do initially, is to use building 5 and 6 for the market, do the same roof line, obviously, on both, with the new building attached, and then eventually move into building 4 down the road. So nothing permanent as far as vendors at this point.
Okay, so then if building 4 were ever to be used for the market, it may also include a coffee shop that she would be proposing. And then right now, there's parking on the east side of the property. The back of the lot is used for trailer service parking, and then the front is also used for that type of parking, but she would propose that to be solely used for the market if they were to switch.
Yeah.
So with that, would that mean the trailer business would be reduced in size and quantity of materials?
The trailers, retail sales would be reduced for sure, yes.
Amy, I have a question on the parking. I don't know if the city code, obviously it's a huge property, I'm very familiar with it. But if I look at where, it doesn't look like it's organized parking. Does it need to be organized? It seems to me that could be some safety issues if it's not.
Sure. So if she were to make it to a stage of submitting a formal application for a site plan review, that would all have to be part of her review.
Okay.
And I would think that that you would probably want to see a paved marked lot. But for right now, it doesn't appear that the code allows this type of use in the agricultural district, so the property is currently zoned A1 and it has that conditional use. So if you are supportive of the use, I would advise that she would probably need to submit an application for a text amendment that would allow, you could be really specific with your guidance about allowing farmers market uses, or open it up to more agritourism uses, which could open up to other opportunities in the city, whether you do or don't want that. So right now, she's looking for feedback to see whether or not it's practical and possible to move forward with her request, which would need a text amendment, I think.
Bonnie, I didn't see anything in here about this being seasonal. Are you looking year-round?
No, year-round.
Okay.
Yeah, year-round.
What's important about year-round use is then you're gonna have to start satisfying the commercial building code, like accessibility, bathroom facilities, things like that. If it was seasonal, there's some wiggle room there. Seasonal being 6 months or less.
Yeah, that's something that I can definitely consider.
Conceptually, I don't have any problem with it. I think the location is appropriate for the use. I mean, we have to deal with the zoning and parking, but conceptually, for me, it's okay.
I like it too, and maybe it is time to look at this agritourism.
They sell eggs now, right?
Yeah.
And some your mom does
My mom's
feathers,
chickens,
arts and crafts and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
So I wouldn't have a problem with a text amendment either going down just off the top of my head right now, I think
Just
that time
speaking
is coming.
personally, obviously, I've been at the business 26 years. I've ran it for 26 years. My parents are 84 and 81. The business has to move forward in a different direction at this point. Not that we don't have a successful business with the trailer and lawnmower sales, but obviously that market is limited. And what I'm here to do is to build a community. I want like-minded people, people-to-people relationships. And that's my main focus in doing this.
I'd recommend it wouldn't hurt to knock on a few doors of the people in the neighborhood, because they have certain expectations, because these are all new property owners, right?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
You built your house not that long ago, but
Yes.
it'd be real helpful to get the feedback from them for your own benefit too, so that if you get this moving along, that you don't have a line of people out the door shooting you down.
Yeah.
But I'll also add that when I know first iteration of Hawthorne Farms approval back a while, well, whenever, when it got rezoned and then it sat idle for a while, former Mayor McAleer cautioned me against us leaving this as agricultural zoning because he, in his words, someone could put a pig farm there, you know, because it's allowed and that, you know. And so this is a little different than that possible scenario. So I think it'd be good to entertain the idea.
Yeah, my vision for this is a European style market. I'm a huge gardener. If you've seen my property, I have 5 acres of gardens, basically. Front lawn, a lot of lawn in front. But that's my goal is European, French style, formal gardens. I just want to garden all day and have an excuse to do it.
Yeah, and there's going to be some art in crafting something that it's not opening it up to, you know, like a mall, you know. So we'll have to be helpful to find somebody else's code that we can just copy, that one that's prevented certain things and allowed certain things.
Yeah.
So if she were to move forward, would you foresee this as a conditional use or a permitted use by right? Because I guess that would be, you know, the difference being a public hearing and notification to the neighbors is really the main difference.
Are there any rights and privileges for the applicant differences between the two?
Well, they've become more similar with that, there was a statutory law change in 2017, 2018 that limits a community's ability to just deny conditional uses without identifying that the applicant's application goes against the purpose and intent of the ordinance and preferably doesn't comply with specific conditions. So ideally, you'd want to be pretty specific with the conditions you put in your ordinance, either way, whether it becomes a permitted use by right or a conditional use. I think you want to try to build in conditions to the mayor's point so that it doesn't just open it up to all kinds of uses.
Does that mean text amendment would also have a conditional use?
Well, that's what I'm asking is, you know, I'll try to help guide Bonnie a little bit with the type of text she proposes. But that would be one of the first items is what zoning district are they allowed in? I'm assuming A1, I think, is your only agricultural district. And then would it be a permitted use by right or a conditional use?
Okay.
And then we could add some conditions for you to consider.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that.
I like it.
Yeah.
So is there a kind of where I was going before? So from an applicant point of view, there's going to be an investment required here.
Yes.
So does a conditional use versus a permanent use give the applicant more, I'll call it safety, with one of those versus the other? In other words, if we do a conditional use and she says, well, I'm not going to spend $1 million for parking and this, that, and the other thing, because it could be taken away from me, versus if we went the other route.
So a permitted use, if it's built into the code, is going to give her more, she's going to know she can do it, versus a conditional use, she has to go through the public hearing process to get the answer. But as far as like the parking and site plan improvement requirements, those are going to be the same either way, I would imagine. I mean, you really have the same standards for your site plan and appearance review. But a conditional use opens the review up to the city to be a little bit more, not a lot, but a little bit more discretionary based on neighborhood context and meeting the purpose and intent of the code.
Okay.
Bonnie, do you envision this being installed in phases?
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Do you see this outside I mean, conceptually it felt right to me, but do you see it outside of the context of what you just said?
Whether or not it is or isn't a good, a reasonable use?
Right.
Will depend. So I do think agritourism uses are a very positive type of use in a community in order to length and longevity of agricultural properties. I don't think it's probably sustainable long-term in communities that are surrounded by an urban environment to expect that those properties are going to be used solely for cropland or dairy production or what have you. So you know, you can see that all over the place. People are trying to supplement the type of uses. But they can also, these types of uses can also create a little controversy and concern from neighborhoods when it relates to noise, traffic, nighttime activity. I mean, if you've been reading the paper, you might see that there's a meeting in Summit tomorrow night, which will probably fill the room regarding event facilities, which is a much more, I would say, probably intense use compared to a market. But these uses in general, they can kind of waver back and forth depending on, you know, the interests of your community members and what they're looking for.
Okay.
But it certainly does play a role in encouraging the rural character in a way. I mean, you can look at it both ways because now there's parking and activity, but it encourages that agricultural environment a little bit more.
I go all the way up to Portage area to go to places like this, and I love it. We hopscotch from one to the other because you get everything is farm raised, everything is fresh, you know, and some of them have large buildings where they grow decorative plants, you know, and yeah, it's really wonderful. So I'm kind of in favor of it. I think that it's something that this area doesn't have. I can't think of anything within 10 miles of here like this. So I think it's kind of unique. It's a good way, like you're saying, with agriculture to support the agriculture lands. And you see more and more farmers doing things like this, even if it's just selling eggs.
Yes.
I'd rather have this than, say, 300 chickens.
You'd want more than that on this.
Yeah. I grew up
If you
on
want to make a living on
yeah.
chickens, you need more.
Yeah. I grew up on a farm where we had probably 300, and believe me, you don't want that many chickens.
So any other ideas to share, or did you get good feedback? It seems like we're receptive to your plan, just needs some fine tuning and maybe
Yeah,
bounce what an application would entail off of Amy and
Yeah.
and see what we need to do.
So did I understand, Amy, that if she decided to go through the permanent use, she doesn't have to go to a public hearing?
Well, no matter what, she needs to propose a text amendment.
Okay,
And then she's going to want to draft that text amendment that will most likely satisfy your expectations. So it might be more helpful for you to tell her what you would expect. If you would prefer it to be a conditional use, I would probably let her know that so that she prepares her text amendment accordingly. Because the process is different. If it were a permitted use, she would come in for a site plan, an appearance review, and business plan of operation and be done in one meeting. If it's a conditional use, there's going to be a public hearing. So she's going to come to the Plan Commission, schedule a public hearing, have a public hearing, and then it's going to go to Common Council for decision and action, or discussion and action.
And there's pros and cons, I mean, there's pros and cons from the city's control standpoint over whether it's a conditional use or a text amendment that's in the ordinance.
I think what we can do for now is have Bonnie write up the conditions that she could deal with for this and use that as a starting point. You can plug in whether or not it fits within a permitted use or conditional use. So I would say another discussion meeting before any formal application would be worthwhile.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Okay?
thanks.
Thank you.
Barry gave us something to think about.
It's a process,
Yes.
just so you know, like it's not something that you're gonna open up in a month or two, probably. Well, you won't.
right, well, and we'll share if we get any calls, just based on the conversations we already had. All right, item 11, comprehensive zoning and ordinance revision. Discussion possible action regarding item A, request initiated by Plan Commission to amend the text of Chapter 52 zoning ordinance regarding provisions of the B5 Office and Research Commercial District. So, I think we've had this in front of us a couple times. Is there anything you'd like to add, Amy?
No, if you're comfortable with it, I would draft an ordinance for attorney review and send it on to council.
Yeah, I would agree with what you're proposing here, with striking off those items.
I do too.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, I'll motion to recommend that the common council approve the proposed text amendments to Chapter 52 of the zoning ordinance, specifically Section 52-111Z, related to the permitted uses in the B5 Office and Research Commercial District as presented in the packet materials this evening. Staff is directed to draft an ordinance for common council consideration, subject to attorney review.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? Okay. We will see that in the future.
Cool.
Item 10B, provide feedback and schedule a hearing at the request of Lake Welfare Committee to amend the text of Chapter 52 zoning ordinance regarding impervious surface provisions. This has been volleyed around a little bit.
Yeah, so last month, we Plan Commission talked about it a little bit, and then decided based on the considerations that were more fiscal and staff responsibility related, that the matter should go to Common Council for consideration, and they did consider the matter this month. They did have quite a bit of discussion. If you want to go, it might be worth going back and watching the YouTube video from the council meeting May 19th. They did talk about the increased staff effort and cost incurred by incorporating the provisions. They did also talk about how the city would track existing and proposed impervious surfaces since they're not currently shown on surveys. And then there was some discussion about existing impervious surface regulations already being, whether or not the existing impervious surface regulations were already effective and whether or not the additional regulations were necessary. And then, council did ask whether or not, what the motivation was and whether or not there were any other ways to address the concern or motivation related to the provisions. And like, so one thing that was brought up during the meeting was, if the concern is increased runoff, can there be a provision preventing runoff into the lake instead of regulating the amount of impervious surfaces? That also has its own challenges, regulating how runoff is managed when we're not always involved in a project that changes the runoff. And then there were some questions or discussion about whether or not the rules were equitable since they may not apply to all properties. So the one thing I did listen to the whole tape. There was some misinformation. So I just want to make sure that the Plan Commission and the Lake Welfare Committee, for that matter, understands what's being presented in this text and whether or not it's what you want to see. So I heard during that meeting discussion about when it was being explained that it only applied to certain lots or lots of a certain size. And that is not how this is drafted. That was the request a couple of years ago that got taken back. It was also mentioned that the rule was related or specific to 50% impervious surface, where I believe Lake Welfare recommended 60%. So that was some additional information that was missed. And then this concept of not including small patios and improvements has not been mentioned earlier and is not part of these proposed text amendments. And I don't really know how you do or don't decipher what is small and large. And, you know, you could say you don't have to get a permit for a patio less than 200 square feet, but how do you exclude or include that in the overall impervious surface calculation? If they go over, they go over. I mean, if the concern, I think that was the point of a council member, you know, what is the concern? Are you addressing water quality or runoff? Then it shouldn't matter if it's a 200 square foot patio versus a 400 square foot patio. It's based on the overall impact of the project. Otherwise, somebody could come in and keep asking for small patios that turn into a big patio. So I'd be really careful trying to exempt certain items that could lead into something else in the future. So if you want, I can go through this. So council does want Plan Commission to entertain the text amendment and go ahead and initiate the application and start the process. But I would caution scheduling a public hearing until you know what you're presenting. So I don't know, Mike, if Lake Welfare wants to weigh in again, or if this is what you, because the way it was described by Alderman Price, quite frankly, is not what's in this report. I mean, there's some elements that are not incorporated, and I want to make sure that I'm doing it right.
Yeah, what you described was what I remember. I don't know what Paul said.
Okay.
But we've been doing this for years. In principle, we've been struggling with, we originally proposed, hey, any properties over 100 feet. And Amy said that's really not going to be doable. You can't really, it's really difficult to disseminate the differences between a large property and a small property because, okay, if it's 100 feet, what about, I'm at 99 and a half. Well, you know, so we've dealt with that with outbuildings and everything else. So we're back to, you know, 50% impervious. Well, we upped it thinking it'd be easier if we went 60% impervious. And I think we started talking about, is it county or some general county requirements?
Yeah.
That were in unincorporated areas, saying maybe that's a pattern we can follow. You know, in principle, what we're doing makes sense. In practicality, and this is what I told Lake Welfare, I support the idea. In practicality, this is kind of difficult. I mean, we wanted something as straightforward as we can get it, you know, but then you get into the questions of what about, and Paul can say that, but it's hard to differentiate between big properties and small properties. As has been pointed out multiple times by multiple people, my property wouldn't probably survive this if I was going to build it today. So I have a very small property on a lake. Is that right or not? I'm not sure. Maybe it's not right. Go ahead, Scott.
You know, the more I hadn't really thought of this until you brought the original perspective, and the more I've been thinking about it, and I read the Common Council, it seems to me that this is should be addressed from more of a strategic perspective. And I think all the work you did was good, but it's more tactical. You know, and the question you just asked, or somebody on the council asked, what impact does this have? I have no idea. I live on the lake. I have an interest in making sure the water is clean. The whole city should, because if we had a list, what's one of the biggest assets in the city, even people who don't live on the lake and don't like people who live on the lake would probably have to raise their hand and say, yeah, that's probably one of the most strategic elements of Delafield. Well, if that's the case, I don't understand. I know Scott probably does, but I don't think from what I've been seeing and hearing so far that we really understand the question you asked a minute ago. What's the impact of this? Yeah. You know, of doing, based on how size the lot is. It's, you know, I sent you guys an email. I wasn't trying to get all over technical, but is remediation linear or geometric? That's a huge impact in terms of what we would, I don't know, and you said you'd be happy to go through that. I don't think we want to do it now. But it seems to me that from what I heard, I was a little surprised by the Common Council's response. It seems like we need to take a step back with a strategic perspective. One thing that came to mind, and in business I was never a huge believer of consultants, but one, what do other communities do? You know, what are some of the other higher-end lakes do when it relates to this? Might not be a fit for us or whatever. And can we get some technical expertise on remediation and what the impact is of having a pickleball court on the lake 35 feet away?
So there is actually a lot of science and research that was done. And the rules that apply to unincorporated areas were developed by the state of Wisconsin, the DNR, based on science and research. Now, with a lot of rules, it started one spot, and based on, you know, negotiations and what have you, it ended somewhere else. So, you know, I know that one number that stuck scientifically for a long time was impervious surface shouldn't exceed 15% within a certain distance of the lake. Well, that ended up growing to 30% is the provision for urban areas, and then there's also mitigation allowed. 60% goes way beyond that. And so I think it's a valid question is if you're managing 60% to protect the water quality, are you doing that at all with that number? Because you can have people, you can mitigate the impervious surface by treating it through rain gardens and infiltration systems, and it can be pretty effective. But if you're allowing 60% without it, you've probably already made an impact that most people may not. I would gather that a lot of properties don't have 60% impervious surfaces unless they are really small. That's a pretty high number, quite honestly. And then but you can treat, if you want to treat the impervious surfaces to address the water quality, it can be done, but it is going to require engineer review time. That is how most communities do it, and it is going to require, that's going to come at a cost to the applicant. So that's, hopefully the council, when they reviewed it this month that was kind of the idea of sending it to them in the first place, is do they understand the repercussions of the regulations? Because those types of items would likely get sent to SEH for review and approval, and the applicants really should be recording a maintenance agreement.
Yeah, my read of and I've just read the summary of the council, so I don't want this to sound unfair, but they seem to be all focused on, well, we do all this, we have to hire people, et cetera, and that's where I step back and say, might be a waste of money to hire people, and it might not be. I don't think anybody knows. And I think we should, before we just plow ahead and pick numbers, I mean, I think that it's a strategic asset for the city. We should probably, at least for me, if I owned the city of Delafield, I'd be going down a path that I'm suggesting we go down.
Yeah, so then what the city needs to decide, and that kind of goes back to common council, is if you do a strategic effort, you're going to have to pay somebody to help you through that process, probably. I mean, actually, you could ask the DNR and Sewer PAC to do quite a bit of work for you. They've researched this to a great extent. But do they want to do that? Do they want to pay? Or even like my time going to, because I do think you need to take a step. I personally think you need to take a step back and make sure that you're addressing what you want to address in here. But, if it's a workshop setting or a subcommittee that you create, that all comes at a cost. So
we've been stepping back for 3 years now.
Right.
I mean, I just, I hear what you're saying, but yet we know, at least speaking for lake welfare, we know we're going to try to do everything we can to protect the lake. Impervious surfaces are bad. We want to stop as much as we can. Every time we're talking about a boathouse, we're always talking about rain gardens and all the associated mitigation. We've been talking about the general impervious surfaces for years. What can we do? What is stepping back? I mean,
here, I'll give you an example. So I think it's important for the group to know. So you're saying 60%. And then I know the question has come up in the past. What was the impetus of the rules? And if it was a specific property, it would be super valuable to know, is that property at 60% or over?
I think 60% as a number was picked because we thought we could get something in. This is the
But right,
third or
but that's not-
fourth round of this.
Right, but so when applicants come in, so it's really important to me and Scott, when there's a regulation, that we can explain it. And when the explanation is, it's the number we picked, that's really hard for staff to get behind. I mean, it really is. And so like if the issue is, these two properties on Nagawicca look terrible because there's a ton of impervious surface and we need to stop that from happening, then I think that it's important to go look at those properties or even on GIS and give it a great estimate on what the impervious surface is and see if the rules even are addressing those particular properties. Because otherwise they would be able to just do exactly what they've already done if you didn't address the concern.
We wanted 50%, we were told it wouldn't work, we backed off to 60%.
Who said 50%
We had
wouldn't work?
50%, for some reason we had that, we thought that's what the non-incorporated areas in Wisconsin.
It's 30, I put in the original 30%, the unincorporated areas are 30%. So the very original DNR rules
So
were
30% are allowed for impervious, or 30% meaning 70%
Impervious.
is impervious?
30% impervious.
Okay.
And you went to 60.
Does the DNR?
Wait, stop. 30% impervious surfaces. You were arguing that 60% really isn't going to do anything. What does 30% do?
30% is twice as restrictive.
No, 30% impervious surface?
Impervious is hard.
Right.
Maximum.
Okay, then 30% of your property means it's hard surface. It means 70% is
Green.
impervious. Okay, so we were told, at least so I thought, that there was no way we'd get to 30%. That's not something we can work with, right?
Who said that?
Well, I mean, do you think it's feasible?
I don't know. I haven't done an analysis of the properties on
Okay.
your lake. What I did is, somebody had asked, what are the examples? Those are the most common examples because it applies to all unincorporated lakes. It applies in the village of Summit. Shaniqua, I don't think, we did do a little analysis of adjacent communities. So I don't believe I ever said 50% or 30% wouldn't work.
We need some guidance, and I'm guilty because I'm on this commission, but I don't have enough experience to really provide something for us to do. So we want to do something about impervious surfaces. I guess I'm looking to this commission to say, yes, there's something we can do, or no, we can't, it's just not feasible. Because I don't want to waste people's time. We've been doing this for, like I said, we've been talking about this ad nauseum. I mean, it's good intent, but if it can't be done, then say so.
I think you need to identify the different types of lake lots. There aren't that many. First of all, RL2 is the predominant lakefront zoning. And so RL2 is 10,000 square feet, often 50-foot minimum. I think you should address the area between the house and the lake with a certain standard, and the area between the house and the road with a different standard. Because the hard surfaces closest to the lake are the ones you're most concerned about.
Well, we've got that already.
Okay.
So there's no impervious surfaces, and don't quote me on the numbers, but within.
35 feet.
Except for sidewalks and boathouses.
True.
Okay.
But you can get into greater detail than that, because everybody is trying to get as close to the water as possible. They're right at the 50-foot, and then they're gonna install a patio. So you could take that part of the lot and allow X impervious surface area. And because the impervious surfaces between the house and the road have to go all the way like this to get to the lake, and that's beneficial. It'll filter, it'll evaporate, it'll infiltrate. I think that would be the easiest. And then you have the non-RL2 lots, like on Nagawicca Road, and they're deep, and so if you break it down, I think it's doable, but it's not one set of standards that would apply fairly to all lots. All the lots are different.
But okay, and that's fine, that all sounds good. We tried that before and didn't work.
Okay.
We said anything over 100 feet, and that was shot down for
100
realistic
feet
reasons.
of
Frontage,
well,
linear
okay.
frontage. It's like, no, we can't really make that distinction, because again, what about somebody with 99 feet of frontage? Well, they're.
It comes back to, what are you trying to address? Because if you're trying to address the hard surfaces that impact the quality of the lake.
Right, yes.
Exempting a whole bunch of properties doesn't really fix the problem. You're applying the rule to the biggest properties that are naturally going to have the most green space, and not applying it to the properties that are probably impacting the lake the most.
Wait a minute, meaning the big properties or the small properties?
The smaller properties,
Okay.
having no regulation. But it's important to know, like, what is the percentage of the lake of small properties, medium, large properties? How much are you, how much are the regulations going to impact or create a result? Because if, let's say you applied it to only 20,000 square foot lots and there's only an eighth of the lake that is of that size, then it might not be worth it. That's quite a big regulation, and may not even be worth something like that.
You can just pull out our map and see what Scott's saying is right. Most of the lots are the ones that I live on.
Correct.
You live on.
They're small.
But then there's exceptions, and I think all of them should be. We should have a strategy or a plan that addresses each of them. And if we're saying, well, it's too involved and we can't afford to get help to do it.
And let's say that. I mean, good intentions and all, we know
No,
that
this
leads,
has
but
nothing
yeah.
to do with you and your group. I just think that apparently we already have information on what others are doing, but I don't think anybody can explain. I live on the lake for many years, and I don't really understand the impact. I think we should be able to tell people who come in here and ask for things that this is why you can only have this much. This is the impact on the lake.
And we can, that information is available.
Okay.
And I know, Mike and Paul have come in to meet with me, and my comment has been that they need to go to Common Council to get support, because my time comes at a cost to the city.
I'm really trying to understand all this because of the green space needed. Are there any reports on, like, say, the last 5 years' water quality of the lake? Has it decreased that triggered this change?
On Nagawicca?
Yeah.
Do you do water quality testing as a lake?
No, Sewer Pack has. The quality is relatively decent, but the culprits are always the same. It's, you get runoff from yards is an issue. You get the constant, everything from fertilizer to natural runoff to you name it. I mean, it's very standard across inland lakes, especially near urban areas like ours. So there's no question that the runoff is an issue in protecting the lake in terms of, making sure that the runoff doesn't get to the lake. That's the objective. It's been that way for a long time. And we do have reams of data from Sewer Pack and from the DNR about how it impacts.
Can you attribute some of that to the development of what people are doing to the shorelines?
Absolutely.
Because I know my cousin lives on Mississippi, and he can't do anything to his shoreline like 20 feet out from it.
I'm not sure what you do 20 feet out from the
Yeah.
shoreline, but yeah.
At the end of his pier, I mean, that's where all the cattails and everything end.
I mean, there's a limit. Trying to improve if your shoreline is a concrete wall, that's a problem, but it's still legal.
Right.
We've got all kinds on the lake, so that's part of it. But I mean, this is all part of a much bigger issue.
Right, because I know that they have a packet out, and I have it in my files at home, where they talk about, the DNR talks about the shorelines and how they prefer to see it, and it's more of a natural state, because it does help with that.
Yeah, I used to live in the channels for 25 years, and you can't do there what I did on this house we live in now, where we appropriately, and DNR approves it, is have like a 4-foot boulder setback, because you get all the wave action. And when you're in the channels, which used to be a swamp until the Delafield put in, you have to put in these coconut logs because it's more of a natural setting. So it does matter where on the lake you are, aside from how big your lot is.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, that's one of the things Scott brought up, is the different areas of the lake and looking at the different zoning classifications and see if we can marry something up with that. Why don't I take a swing at this with staff, and I'll get you, drag you in again, Mike.
Which is fine.
We'll just talk a little bit about that approach and see what we can, see if we can massage this into something that is both, we can demonstrate, one, is gonna have an impact, and two, is not gonna have horrible unintended consequences on either staff time and cost to monitor it, or overly restricting people's rights that don't have the target on their back, right? Because I think that's where, I volleyed some things back and forth with you too, when we look, if you look at 30% as the max, we've got dozens of properties that have 30% impervious surface on the.
No, that's the vast majority of the properties in the
Yeah,
lake.
so, but why don't we talk about this and not try to move this ahead in the form of public hearing right now, and bring it back.
And we believe, Lake Welfare believes, I'm representing Lake Welfare, definitely believe there's something we want to do. I'm not the least bit interested in wasting everybody's time.
Yeah.
If this just isn't viable, let's just kill it and be done, we'll move on.
So what guidance can you give staff to come back better prepared next time? What do you want to see in a revised report?
We kind of got it. Okay. I mean, you know, there's a lot of problems with this, and obviously with, you know, we did not present many details because it's not our job. We know we want the large-scale parameters. We know, you know, and I hear what you're saying, Scott, but strategically, we know what we want to do. It's just tough to get down to the details. And every time we've presented it multiple times, and it keeps getting shot down. Not because it's wrong, but just because it's not viable. Well, if this whole process is not viable, let's just be done with it. So we'll work on it and see if we can take one more shot without taking a whole hell of a lot of time from people.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right, item 11C, provide feedback, initiate an application to amend the text of Chapter 52 in the zoning district maps regarding the primary environmental corridor overlay district. I think you're introducing this.
I don't think we're going to get into this in great detail tonight, but I'll just give you a little overview of, I guess, what's to come. So the city's comprehensive plan has a natural resource chapter in it, and environmental corridors are part of it. And when the comprehensive plan was adopted many years ago, I'm guessing in the year, but I think 2009 may have been the original date, and then it's been updated recently, and the corridor provisions have been maintained. In that comprehensive plan, it suggests that the city should adopt environmental corridor boundary requirements that match Sewer PAC's recommendations. So if you go to our zoning code, the city did adopt an environmental corridor overlay boundary, which does limit the amount of disturbance that's allowed in areas designated as corridor. But there's nothing on the zoning map or the comprehensive land use map that indicate where environmental corridors exist. It's just, there's one environmental corridor map in the comprehensive plan, and it's dated, you know, well over a decade ago. And Sewer PAC updates their corridor maps every 5 years, let's say. So one objective would be to, if the city wants to continue to regulate environmental corridors, it's important to get them to show up on the maps so that Scott and I know where they are, so that it's transparent and applicants know where they exist as well. And then we'd also like to look at the code language in the environmental corridor district. So these are provisions that I have quite a bit of experience with. And the code is written to accommodate lots that are 5 acres in size. But there's a lot of lots, or larger, there's a lot of lots that are not 5 acres in size, and then the provisions become overly flexible, or actually just don't meet the intention of the district. So I would propose some language that would be specific based on the actual lot size, so that the disturbance is more of a percentage of the lot area, not a square footage based on a 5 acre lot, if that makes any sense. I'll bring it back. I just want to give you a quick overview. So in the packet, you'll see the existing environmental corridor boundary language is in the packet. And that's where next meeting I can provide some red line changes and some updated maps. So if we update the maps and keep them updated every 5 years to follow Sewer PAC, those maps do they, you know, again, they do regularly change. And there are some significant differences between the map that's shown in the comprehensive plan, which we're currently regulating, versus today's maps. So I think we already have a map that shows the areas of difference, just so that you're aware of that too. So that's all I have for tonight. I think we're running out of, I am running out of brain power. So I'll bring it back next month and for just more discussion, and I will bring a red line version of that information for you.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Reports of city officials, correspondence was in the packet, and B, planner.
Nothing.
All right. C, building inspector.
Nothing.
All right. Regular meeting schedule for our next meeting is June 25th, and submittal deadline is May 28th. And seeing no further business, we're now adjourned at 9:20.